So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is officially launching this week on the Nintendo Switch, and the game has already pretty much been leaked out there. I've seen Steam Deck, or at least some people claiming that it's on Steam Deck. I've seen people that have actually got physical copies that they purchased early due to retailers selling them early or even being stolen at some point. Who knows? Just watch out, guys. There are quite a bit of spoilers that are out there floating around the web, so just be careful and watch my channel, because I'm not going to spoil you on anything when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. We're going to talk about a number of other things when it comes to the sales or positioning or some of the strategies or even what's next for Monolith Soft, discuss theories. It's not going to be anything spoilerish, so you can rest assured I'm not going to do that here on this channel. But before we get into anything, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the next big Monolith Soft RPG after Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And yes, we're going to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles X as well, because a lot of you guys ask me about this game and what's happening and if it's ever going to come to Switch and what's going on. Could it come to the next gen Switch? Well, we'll discuss all the possibilities here and look at the most likely scenario for the game and also what Monolith Soft will be doing next. But before we get into that, we have to actually discuss exactly what is Monolith Soft and how they're constructed, because there is confusion surrounding that as well. Now, Nintendo purchased Monolith Soft a number of years ago, so they are a whole subsidiary first-party developer for Nintendo. They are not separate. They're not something that where Nintendo just kind of works with them, kind of like a second-party slang term or anything. Nintendo does own them outright. Now, Monolith Soft is also constructed into multiple different teams with multiple locations throughout Japan. I think they have like 4 or 5. And within those locations, they work on a number of different Nintendo IP. They have over 270 employees, and they work on Splatoon, Zelda, Animal Crossing, just a variety of IP that Nintendo does have. Now, constructed within them, they do have their main teams with Takahashi and how they make the big games, right? So the Xenoblade Chronicles X, the original Xenoblade Chronicles, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Then they also have side teams that can do stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, where they kind of splinter off and get maybe a smaller project done, but get it done efficiently. So you'll see those big games be like, wow, like 40 or 50 people did Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That wasn't Takahashi's team 1 with all the people. It was just 40 to 50 people with some outside contracted help with art and a few of other things as well. So very impressive what they've been able to do with the resources that they're given, considering they made a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that massive without the actual strength of the full Takahashi team 1. But that's where Xenoblade Chronicles 3 comes in. Obviously, that is the next big game in line, where it's actually having more money and more time and more effort and everything put into it, which we're seeing in the previews is definitely paying off. Now, they've been working on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 for a number of years now, but they're pretty much done at this point. They're so done, they moved it up a couple of months, or a month and a half or so. It was supposed to launch in September. Now it's launching at the very end of July here. So obviously they've been done for quite some time, and they're probably already working on or have been working on their next projects. Now, we've all heard about this supposed new IP that they're working on, it seems. However, that could have just been a front for the next iteration of the Xeno franchise, Xenoblade, Xeno, whatever they're going to call it next. So it could be like, yes, it's a new IP, but it's going to be called Xeno something. So it's just the next iteration of what they're doing, because they couldn't just give it away if it was going to be a new style of Xenoblade game or a new different flavor of the Xeno line of games. So I do feel that it could be that, or it It could just be an actual brand new IP where they delve into something. Maybe they make a traditional turn-based RPG. Maybe they evolve what they're doing with an action RPG. Maybe they kind of go a little bit of a different way with the style of RPG where it's not big team party based. Maybe it's like 1 or 2 or only 3 people and you kind of switch from there. So there's all sorts of things to where they can go with. We just don't know at this point. There's been a few details here and there, but it's just been sketchy in terms of what they're going to do. But it seems like it also could be a fantasy style RPG, something along the lines of that, more of like medieval or traditional style of RPG, what you'd see like in Final Fantasy or something like that. So we'll see exactly how they decide to go forward with that or what it actually ends up being. Now, let's talk about the thing that I know a lot of you guys want to discuss here, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Is this game in the works? Has it been in the works now that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is complete? Just as a side note, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, we have no idea exactly when that game was finished because they moved it up. So it definitely seems like either it was finished well beforehand or they've been sitting on it for quite some time. So they've obviously been working on other things outside of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. They have more teams, they have more people, so they've been working on something. So that next Xenoblade Chronicles game could be Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And the reason why I say Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, because if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Wii U or the original Xenoblade Chronicles X game, the ending is on a huge cliffhanger. Now, the game's story isn't as involved or as connected as some of the other Xenoblade games like Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3, Future Connected, Torna, all of that, but it still kind of ended in a way that was not satisfactory for a lot of fans. So if they did a Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition on the Nintendo Switch or whatever Nintendo's doing next, or a dual launch or whatever the heck you want to say with it, if they did that, they can have a future connected type of expansion where you can play that separately, which kind of wraps up what happens, which is exactly what Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition did with Future Connected, kind of wrapping up the whole High Entia story and kind of what happened, because it was somewhat sad at the end of Xenoblade Chronicles, the original. So I feel that they could do the same thing with Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, we haven't seen Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Switch because of the size of the game and the porting of the game. It's not something that you can just snap your fingers and easily get ported over. It's something that would definitely take time based on how big that game is, how it's built uniquely for the Wii U itself, also the online multiplayer. You'd have to figure out quite a number of things to get that game running efficiently and good and actually have it to where fans would be happy with it. I think that adding that extra chapter would probably be the best bet as well, which also why I think that it's just hasn't been ported quickly at this point. I think they do want to do a bit more with it without actually making a full sequel to the game that could take a number of years, because I'm not sure if they want to go in the same, I would say, path as like with the mechs and all of that with Xenoblade Chronicles X. Or maybe they're doing something different with a new IP that has their ideas for what they want to do with mechs, and it's not going to involve Xenoblade Chronicles X. So we'll see how that is. So I do feel that we could get a Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition in any number of years, or maybe it's announced, who knows, we just don't know. Nintendo can just come out of nowhere. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was just announced in February at the Nintendo Direct, and it's already now launching at this point. So they can kind of come out of nowhere with these big, massive RPGs. They've already done it multiple times, and Nintendo's definitely going to do it in the future. Now, I'd also like to see, on top of the Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, I'd also like to see a brand new IP from them, or whatever the next iteration of Xenoblade or Xeno whatever is going to be, where it does change up a number of things that has nothing to do with the previous worlds, and they kind of go in different directions with the gameplay, very similar to how Xenogears is to Xenosaga and Xenosaga is to Xenoblade. There's some similarities here and there, but for the most part, they're very different. They're new IPs, but you know who made them. So I kind of want to see that going forward with this next new IP from Monolith Soft, or their next new game from them, just because they are probably the most talented team over at Nintendo when it comes to what they can do with the resources and what they can build. It's exactly the reason why Nintendo has them working on Zelda and Splatoon and so many different franchises, because the people that work at Monolith, man, they are awesome, and they're a very good support studio as well, making sure that things get done. So I think that an exciting new IP, or the next iteration of the Xeno line of games, would be superb for even the Nintendo Switch, or maybe even the next gen Nintendo Switch. I think that would probably be more exciting, kind of similar to how they did with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but the only difference with that was that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was made in such a short time period, considering what happened with Xenoblade Chronicles X and the Wii U. It was a fast turnaround from that 2015 launch to 2017 at the end of the year for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So I don't think the next major Monolith Soft game will come that quickly after Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but I don't think it'll be too long after the next Nintendo system launches that we see something from the Monolith Soft team. So that could be one of their headliner games, kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was for the Nintendo Switch. They could show it and say, hey, this is what you're going to be getting next from them, and it's maybe coming out at this point or this time. Probably not a launch title, but it's coming out at this point or this time, to get excited about that. Every single development cycle is different. Everything is kind of new when it comes to what you're going to do next, so we just don't know, but it'll be awesome to see that. Now, I do want to go over this in a separate video, but for right now, I want to talk about it just briefly, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 right now with some of the sales numbers. Now, I discussed it in a previous video where I talked about how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is charting above Xenoblade Chronicles 2 with COMG pre-orders. So those are the pre-orders in Japan. It's already completely outsold in terms of pre-orders Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in Japan with the COMG charts. So that's definitely good. We are also seeing on the Amazon sales charts that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is number 2 on the list, right behind Splatoon 3 and right in front of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. So people are definitely excited and hyped for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Also on the Famitsu Most Wanted, which pulls the excitement level for various different Japanese games that are coming out from the readers. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is number 2 on that list as well, hanging around with the big boys like Splatoon 3 and also Final Fantasy. So very excited to see a very big shift when it comes to pre-orders and sales and anticipation for a Xenoblade game, because it wasn't this high with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and definitely wasn't like that with Xenoblade Chronicles 1. We had to beg with the Operation Rainfall just to get that game to come over. And now at this point, we're getting the pinnacle of Xenoblade goodness. So very good to see that. So what are your thoughts when it comes to everything that we discussed here with Monolith Soft, the next big game, new IP, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and also potential Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Switch, or the next gen Nintendo Switch or next Switch? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.